random Stone cover story, article, magazine, whatever you want to call it. It came out today, and I read it, and I was like, let me talk about this because actually I like it because I feel like they used to do well. They treat it as a like TV interview, like how they used to like I'm gonna be on. Let's say this was Nightline, or sometimes not Nightline, but like a TV special interview, and they just capture her from different months or different points in a year, and just talking to her all the time. So I don't know who wrote this. Brian Hates. Oh, I thought a woman wrote this. Anyway, so Brian, they started off talking about the tour, and um, she gets lightheaded, too aware of a pounding heart, as she's on this giant crane or whatever it is for the show, for the Mayhem Ball tour. And she talks about, she says, when I am not on stage, I feel dead. She told me in our last encounter, oh, 14 years ago, 14 years, and several mental health crises ago. Oh, I thought that was recent. See, some of the stuff like was confusing because I'm like, is this recent? I thought he was talking about like recent, but he was talking about he references their last conversation during Born This Way, which is like 2011, and so he says there's no really 14 years ago, several mental health crises ago, before she'd even seen a therapist. Whether that is healthy or not is really no concern of mine. She bragged back then of not sleeping or eating, of living off of coffee and music. And then it time jumps again because I think this is like the fame he's talking about here, or before the fame. She was dating an on and off again Shirley metalhead bartender. She considered her muse. Everyone around her called her Gaga. She was about okay, maybe not. Okay, she was about to finish her second album, Born This Way, which went on to sell 14 million copies. This is the one part that confused me, or was like, what? Her next album was Jagged Art Pop, which fans would eventually embrace as a favorite, or maybe embrace as a favorite is a newer concept. Because I'm like, I thought we all liked um, art pop. At least I did. I thought it was just like the general public that didn't care for art pop when it first came out. And thinking about what she says about art pop now, actually, it all makes sense how the general public didn't really care for art pop when it first came out. I'll try to tap back into that when we get to the art pop section. Um, Gaga faced the first backlash of her career. She's been suppressing trauma since age 19, when she said music producer raped no, is it on her in the art pop era. It was breaking through. He just goes on and talks about the jazz albums, A Star Is Born, Joanne. I mean, right off the bat, she says, I did A Star Is Born on lithium. Wow. That was like very shocking to hear. She offhandedly reveals on the Joanne World tour, right after shooting that film, she experienced what she describes as a psychotic break. There was one day that my sister said to me, I don't see my sister anymore, she says, and I canceled the tour. There was one day I went to the hospital for psychiatric care. I needed a break. I needed to take a break. I couldn't do anything. I completely crashed. It was really scary. There was a time where I didn't think I could get better. I feel really lucky to be alive. I know that might sound dramatic, but we all know how this can go. Now, I was like, I know this lady did not just lie to us for about 10 years saying that the reason why the Joanne tour was canceled because of like body pain and then fibromyalgia. But then it like hit me. She always talked about her fibromyalgia being like mentally, her mental pain or her mental trauma, the trauma that affected her mentally ended up affecting her body. So I was like, okay, she didn't really lie, but I was just like, whoa. And I think Gaga is a functionally depressed. Wait, how do you say this correctly? I think she's functionally, her depression, she functional, like a functional alcoholic. I think she's like a functional depressive person until you can't anymore. Also, I find it so interesting that I think a lot of times Gaga's statements, or like in the past, really, she got like headlines for. I think her headlines in the media are are surface based. I don't think they're anything salacious, anything um crazy, because she's had multiple psychotic episodes in the past, what, 20 years, 14, 15 years that she's been. Oh no, it's been more than 15 years. I think it's almost 20 years. Has it been 20 years? Oh my God, it's almost 20 years. What are we, like 15 years? I think we're at like 15 years. She's had multiple psychotic situations or mental health crisis, and I feel like the media really hasn't touched on that. Even or like it seems like they don't care, because even a couple of was that last year when she revealed that she was having, is it called a psychosis, when during it was like right after that movie, the Gucci movie. She revealed that she had like a psychosis or something like that. And like it just seemed like nobody cared. Like it wasn't like that shocking. I don't know. Not that it wasn't it was shocking to me because I was like, oh wow. But I'm like, nobody really talked about it or nobody really made it like a big deal. And I feel like even like she was still growing up, or she was still in the era of like talking about Britney and her mental health, and then Amanda Bynes and all these like salacious type situations that were going on with certain celebrities. And I feel like Gaga never really, everybody, I just remember like people talking about, okay, the tour canceled, um, her breakup with that actor, her other breakups, like the meat dress, the music. I feel like they kind of talked about that part. And for some, it's very interesting how none of her psychotic breaks or psychotic episodes in the hospital, they never really got out. And they never were like really leaked. So I'm like, I don't know who was around her. I don't know like if she was able just to be lay low. But it's actually because I know like other celebrities have gone through this and they've been in the media. The whole Whitney Houston and her crack den in her house, and the picture I think her sister-in-law took, and like her house was a mess. So I'm just like, she's very protected, because I feel like I said, the only like salacious or craziest thing that I've heard in the past like 10 years of like in the media was like her breakup with like the men, and then the fans online that they just talk about her chart positions, but like that's it. She says being in love with someone who really cares about me made a very big difference. She says, but that meant she had to figure out who she was, who that was. How do you learn how to be yourself with someone when you don't know how to be yourself with anyone? She's found that answer and now considers herself a healthy, whole person. Shirley's Mayhem. It was months and months and months of rediscovering everything that I'd lost, she says. And I honestly think that's why it's called Mayhem. Took, because what it took to get back crazy. What it took to get it back was crazy. Also, like, the whole like firing Lorianne, the whole like I think that was like the other like I feel like there's like three top salacious things. Nothing was like mental health like related or like her business related, her going broke or anything like that. So I'm just like trying to get it back. Um, that just sparked something because I'm just like the whole like the whole management change was that right after Art Pop, right before Art Pop, right? That whole change, or during Art Pop, maybe that was during Art Pop. I don't remember. Any comments? Probably not. The accompanying tour, the Mayhem Ball, is the most impressive spectacular spectacle in a career full of them. I'm not an adrenaline junkin anymore, she says. I used to love that feeling. Now she reacts like any well balanced human. Excuse me. I see the fans every night. She says, eyes wide, and I'm in this big dress, and the music is loud and it's very dramatic. And for 90 seconds, I have to talk myself out of a panic attack. Polinsky listens in on her mic feed, sometimes catches her breathing hard. But I'm like, girl, she's always been breathing hard. that whole that Chromatica Ball Tokyo audio mic feed, you could hear her breathing hella hard. Oh, and then the Miami Enigma mic feed, that mic was on. She's breathing hella hard. So I don't know. I don't think that's anything new or anything. Maybe that's just what it is. I don't know. I don't know. The feeling sustains for the entire first song. I'm panicking a little bit during Bloody Mary, but after that comes this year's hit, Abracadabra. Somehow, every time she starts that song's choreography, her heart rate slows and she remembers who she is. All the practice for this tour, for all the practice for this tour, for every tour kicks in. Oh, okay. The rehearsal of self saves me, she says. Every cell in my body goes, you know what to do. Around that point, she tends to gaze out of the crowd and shout a familiar command. Put your fucking paws up. Yo, this shit is so funny. That part is so funny. She definitely is not Gaga or Stephanie. Polinsky tells me she's both, and yeah, they go together much more than I think people realize. She put it a little different. Lady Gaga, the person who's made Lady Gaga, she says, put it permitting herself as a small laugh at the tautology. I think I just feel more relaxed about it. Like I am Lady Gaga, you know. This idea that it has to be something specific, I think that's an old story. I think I used to tell myself, and I don't really care what anyone calls it anymore. It's just me. And I feel like this whole era, this whole mayhem era, she's been trying to like um vocalize the difference between Lady Gaga and Stephanie, and I feel like she finally got to it because I'm like, I haven't really been like she's been talking about it for years, and then now she's like bringing it back up, and now I kind of feel like she knows, and I can understand what she's talking about. Um, Sometimes though, it's not quite that simple. On a Tuesday afternoon in July, 8 days before this tour, three Lady Gaga stocks the up. Okay, I don't care. They talk about the rehearsal for the tour. No, 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 no. Let's get more. Okay, no, no, no. In minimal makeup, she's dressed like her own stagehand, all in black with a blonde ponytail, peeking out of a knit cap. Torn fishnet stockings are the only stylistic flair she allows herself. All in all, it's the most Stephanie version of her I've met. And the same look for the tour audiences we'll see when she emerges at the end of the show. Out of costume, her face scrubbed, Polanski calls this incarnation of the artist. And I haven't seen it, but I haven't seen the show yet, like fully. But I've seen that part where she sings "How bad do you want me?" And it's interesting that she ends the show with "How bad do you want me?" Because I'm just like, it's not a single, but I guess she doesn't necessarily. I think she's kind of always ended the show with a ballady type song, Gypsy and Marry the Night. Well, Marry the Night is a bop, so I don't know. But it's interesting that yeah, um, Hold My Hand and How Bad Do You Want Me are very interesting that she ends the show like that. But I guess it's like a reflective moment. What did she end with? I think Million Reasons, right? And Joanne. The T-shirt running all in black. She sees him as her creative partner now, and he's credited alongside of her as one of the tour's creative directors and executive producers. I have a lot to say about Michael Polanski. I don't want to go so hard in it because I want to like I don't I want to be I really just want to be PG and PC about that whole thing. Like maybe one day I'll really go in. I'll probably go in a little bit talking about it now about Michael, but I'm not a huge. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. The stage smokes. Oh, okay. She talks about the tour, which I find hilarious. Like I feel like only she would just like reveal the entire tour, the concept of the tour. Um, during an interview, I wish Beyonce would do that. Beyonce, like, can you get back to doing interviews that are not written, like question and answered already? Gaga is bearing down. Okay, here's a good part. Gaga is bearing at the last minute. She's adding a gut renovated version of "Shallow" to the show, with the staging that nods to Andrew Lloyd Webber's Phantom of the Opera. Getting her to the B side. Okay, this was where I was like, why is he talking like this? Getting her to the B stage is always a question, says Polanski, and they've come up with a novel solution: a gondola. Her crew just needs to build her one and figure out how to propel it across the catwalk to her piano on the other side. When I um when I first saw that she was singing "Shallow" like that, I was like, "What the fuck?" I was like, "There's no way this lady is singing "Shallow" like this," because it's completely different. And she explains why it's completely different. Oh wait. Let me finish. Let me finish because um, she answers the question. It's so campy to sing "Shallow" on a boat. Gaga says happily. sort of ridiculous. I was like, this is the perfect challenge because this could go really bad. She also wanted to bring Shallow into her own. Okay, yeah. So it at first I was like, this is really bad, but her vocals don't make it bad. Like she's serving completely new why am I saying it like that? She's singing completely like new reinvented vocals, which I really like. Also I really like the way she changed a million reasons too. But it really was bad. And I was watching this podcast and they were talking or listening to this podcast and they were talking about how there's one guy, he was like, I hate how modern singers they take whatever their hits are and they transform them into fitting whatever narrative of the new tour or album is. And I was like, oh, he was really right. I was like, no, he's just hating. But I'm not he no, I'm not gonna say he was hating, but he was definitely clicking on some things because I'm like, why is this girl singing shallow on a boat rolling across the stage? Like, I can't wait to watch it. But I'm just like, it looks so like Madonna doing not to bring up Madonna, but to bring up Madonna, like she does that a lot. Um each tour there's a new thing. And then sometimes like Shallow has good vocals, like a Virgin on the Confessions tour was really incredible. Um the Madam X tour was really weird. Okay, let me move along. She wanted to bring Shallow into her own aesthetic universe for the first time. Oh, okay. Since it's studio arrangement. So deeply reflective, its cinematic origins, it doesn't have a signature style, she says. She happens to remember that Mark Ronson, one of its co-writers, and created an electric drum loop that didn't make the final recording. After she texted him, he dug it back up and sent it to her. The song now opens with this throbbing synth bass that completely transforms its moody style. I think that's what it brought. I think that's what brought out. That's what it brought out in the song. Is that Allie and Jackson's relationship was kind of dark. She says in this version, I kind of feel that something really scary might happen. Come with me, Gaga says, and we journey through concrete corridors to her curtained off carpet background sanctum, backstage sanctum. Um, she just talks about the tour. I've never acted this way on an arena stage before. Yeah, I thought it was very theatrical. The little clips that I've seen is very theatrical. Even like the Coachella version is very theatrical. So it's probably maybe as theatrical as the Monster Ball. I think it's different every night. After I sang Million Reasons to Mayhem, she was oh wait, it's different every night. She cried after one night's show, explaining to Polanski that something new happened. After I sang Million Reasons to Mayhem, she was afraid of me. She attempts to succulently break down the story. Mayhem is how I start the show, she says. It's the most egocentric side of me, a side of being Gaga that I really loathe. I basically announced that I'm the queen and I put a more naive and youthful version of myself into the deep sleep with a desire to torture her. As a way of teaching Gaga how to be great, ethereal Gaga enjoys it. She just falls into this gothic mania and Mayhem is aghast because her whole motivation was to girl a lesson and sort of abuse her into greatness. And what she wanted doesn't go as planned. There's, of course, a not so veiled autobiography here. I think maybe people don't know how heavily I worked as young as I worked as a young person, says Gaga, and I reminded her of a time I watched her perform 6 songs after midnight for some random promotional video in 2009. Her voice gave out and she fled the room only to return and force herself through an inconsequential performance with a level of inhumane determination I found worrisome. Like her character, she had been a habit of embracing the pain inflicting upon her. I believe in suffering for your art. I believe that in a way that was so real. It was almost earnest and sweet, but it was really not healthy for me. As she recorded Mayhem, Gaga had dreams. One of these sides of myself, there's a line in the industrial confessional, Perfect Celebrity. Okay, I don't care. Oh, she talked about this dream. He drug up some transcripts, and in 2009, she said, I had this dream that I had something evil inside of me. She told me that year as we rode through Manhattan in a chauffeured car. Okay, who cares? And there was this white wall, and in order to get the negativity out of me, I had to hit the wall. And in essence, I would fly out of my soul centered. I was trying to get rid of it, an exorcism of some sort. You know what? I That's the only part that I really don't understand about her. That I really, and it's probably not just for me to understand. And I've come to that conclusion that I really don't understand the whole like dark side and the whole exorcism and the whole like talking about death all the time. And it's just like, oh my god, that's not my jam. She goes in depth about the disease video and how it like birthed mayhem. Oddly enough, the video and all of the thematic cues the tour took from it might not have existed without Gaga's latest movie, and then like Joker was so dark, and I was just like, bro, come on with the dark shit. October, there was a ton of negativity around Joker, she says, and I think I was feeling artistically rebellious at the time. Gaga deeply felt turn. Alongside Joaquin Phoenix, whatever. People didn't really get it. After all the Gaga experiences, did the wave of hatred for the movie really bother her? I wasn't like phased, she says, smiling at the question. It's funny. It's almost nervous. I'm almost nervous to share my reaction. But the truth is, when it first started happening, I was starting to laugh. I started laughing because it was just getting so unhinged. Her amusement eventually faded. When it takes a while for something to kind of dissipate, that can be a little bit more painful. Only because I put a lot of myself into it. And I think that's the only part that like kind of sucks. Like damn, she really did. Um at the end of the day, I think she's basically saying yes, it does hurt. Um Even like the fans weren't feeling it at the end of the day. And I'm like, I don't really remember people talking about it. I feel like the music part kind of took over the album, and there was like two versions of the album. So I'm just like, it's a lot going on here. And then you have the movie, and the movie doesn't do well. And then I think she says only because she put a lot of herself in it that it sucked. And I'm like, yeah, you live and you learn. The movies, besides A Star Is Born, not really doing well for her. I don't know why. Because then weren't like people, she was like really guarding for that Oscar with Gucci, and then Gucci didn't even get that many Oscar nominations. And then people kept talking about the accent. That was a lot. when we were done filming it, I went kind of dark. What's she talking about? Oh, she's talking about disease. I put so much of that energy into the video. She says, I was in that place, you know. I was like, I'll show you who I am, and I'll show you what this fight is like. The resulting work of art cut a little too deep. When we were done filming it, I went kind of into a place mentally, she says. Maybe I scared myself a little bit for weeks, and I was really bothered. It was in my head a lot. I was actually trying to figure out what I was trying to say. There's a side of me that's scared of another side, and I think that was there with a that was that there. I think that there was a sense in me that I was not done healing. Oh, starting with her Coachella performance in April, essentially the first draft of the show, she placed this internal battle at the center of her performance. I decided I wanted to make something that everybody could understand and love, she says. And it didn't have to be the most dark thing that I had never created, that I had ever created. Isn't that mayhem talking? I have to be dark. And like, what is that in me that I have to be the toughest or the most edgy? She laughs when I point out that lighten up or not, she chose to put a concept she found psychology destabilizing at the center of her world tour, forcing herself to revisit it at night, every night. Yeah, that's interesting. Also, I'm kind of shocked that Mayhem at Coachella isn't a completely different show than Mayhem, where we're like the tour. Like that was so weird. I really thought she was gonna come up with a different concept, a different stage, a different set list, or a slightly different set list. I thought Coachella was just gonna be one piece. They talk about swine and the vomiting with not Millie Bobby Brown, Millie Brown. I thought she was glamorizing bulimia. I mean, this part really spoke truth. She tried to explain the song "Swine" and performance were just an attempt to process her sexual assault and anything but a random provocative provocation. No one seemed to be listening, and overall, the rejection of art pop altered the course of Gaga's career. Yeah, very impactful, she says. Like, much more impactful than any other criticism of my artwork. That was hard. That was the first time I'd ever had a major criticism about a piece of work of mine that I'd make. Nobody was listening to art pop. Nobody was like looking at the lyrics. Um, I think some songs were definitely reflective of the time that she was living in. And I'm just like, nobody was listening. Which it's a great lyrical album, it's a great vocal album, and it's a great like sounding album. The music in it. And how she like mixed the whole like two genres that she was working on into this other genre to like express herself. They talk about the VMAs. Oh, they talk about her linking up with Hackney Diamonds. Oh no, I'm sorry. What's his name? Watt. whatever his name is, Watt. He worked on the Mick Jagger song, and so she liked him and asked him to come work on some music, and so they worked on Vanish into You. Blah 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 blah. I put so much into art pop. She says it was really my EDM opus, and also I was very in a very chaotic place. It feels sometimes hard. It feels hard sometimes to stand firmly in the ground when it's sinking. The album and her choices around it refuse to give people what they expected. People don't like it if I say I won't dress the way you want me to dress. I won't have the hair you want me to have, and I'm going to not make pop music the way you want me to make it. Because you want everything to sound like bad romance, and I'm never going. Excuse me, and I'm never doing that again. The sexism within the response is, in hindsight, obviously obvious to Gaga when male artists refuse to repeat themselves. She points out they're celebrated as visionaries, radical thinkers discovering new territory who don't need to adhere to the laurels of their previous success. Instead, I was sort of her herald as like over. She was at the time only 27. And her okay, I'll talk about this. In her mind, the world was treating her like a product, not an artist. It was at every angle in the room, every place I went. She says, product. Every business, what can you get to do? What can you get her to do? Will she do this? Can you get her to do this? Once I became a huge business for people, their priority was not making sure that I was a dignified artist experience, that I had a dignified artist experience. It was to make sure that in my life, oops, sorry, it was to make sure that I could earn as much money as fast as possible. There came a time in my life, I don't understand this part. There came a time in my life where I would enter rooms and there would be no instruments anymore. It was only trying to control me to be a piece of business. Now, this part, I feel like, besides the perfume, I don't know what else she could be talking about. Let me know if you guys know. Besides the perfume, I don't know what other like business venture. It wasn't like she was like doing a whole bunch of product endorsements because she's in the past 5 years she's done more product endorsements now than I feel like ever. So I'm like, I don't know. I guess it's just like a personal thing, and also like here we go again with this, like none of these stories are leaking out. Gaga refused to do this, and Gaga refuses to do that. Um, like none of those things were like prevalent besides her just firing her entire um or did they leave? I don't remember. Her like half of the creative team or whatever. Besides that happening, I don't know what else she could be talking about. I mean, there's no like at least I don't think there's any actual things that she could be talking about. Because when I say like I keep saying, these salacious things, they're not out the stories aren't like out there like that. So she simply slipped out of that world, gliding into and then the art pop. I'm not gonna be who you want me to be. I'm not gonna make music the way you want me to make music, and you definitely. I don't know. I don't because I like the album. I didn't necessarily find a problem with applause. Um, a couple of songs aren't my absolute favorite songs, but I'll listen to them. Um, but like, I didn't find a problem with like the music, which was so interesting. So she slipped out of that world, gliding into anarchy departments. She talks about Tony Bennett and what's the name, Bradley Cooper. Mayhem as a piece of music, I would never have made it without the 10 years of experience that I've had. She says, nearly 30 if you count all the years of my music. What would Mayhem sound like if I hadn't become a jazz singer? What would it sound like if I hadn't made art pop? 2020 Chromatica had some great hits, she says. She says, Uh, she's on antipsychotics, but she's weaned off a lot of them. She still loves Chromatica, but she sees it as a sort of half measure, a transitional moment. Chromatica was very literal because that's all I had. She says, I didn't have a lot of the same type of poetry inside of me because I sort of lost it. And I actually think that was true for Joanne as well. But it's almost like if someone were to say, how do you feel? And you refuse to give an artistic response and you just go, I feel like shit. The spirit of Chromatica was to be hopeful and when you're not. And I feel like, okay, that makes sense. A lot, and she talks about that a lot in Chromatica. The only thing about Chromatica, wait, I think she'll talk about Chromatica again. The only thing about Chromatica is, like I said, I think Gaga is like a functional depressive person or whatever because she was doing a lot of Enigma shows and then it turned into like jazz. What was it called? Jazz and piano. She was doing a lot of the Enigma shows, and so I'm like, when does she have time to be this depressive when she's making music and then because there wasn't a huge gap in between Enigma ending and Chromatica coming out. So I'm like, when does she have time to be this like depressive, singing, smoking, three packs of cigarette on the fucking porch? If she talks about the porch one more time, I don't know when this happened, and it's very confusing. But Mayhem, and I thought the sadness and the darkness was gonna end at in Chromatica. Even though the lyrics are very sad, the visual aspect started off really well. It started off kind of happier, and then the tour happened, and that was a different experience. I'll say that. Mayhem came from a different Gaga. I was willingly and openly running through all the nightmares of my past and present and just finding poetry in all of it, she says. And that was the sign of my health as a musician. One of the things I'm most grateful for is gaining all my artistic faculties back to make this record. I had to dig very, very deep and had to change a lot of my life and recenter around what I needed as a human being. Okay, here we go with Michael. Michael Polanski proposed marriage. They talk about when Gaga happened to meet Gaga. When he had happened to meet Gaga's mom at a fundraiser in late 2019, Polanski never imagined marrying or even going on a single date with a pop star. When her mom first started telling me she wanted to set me up with her daughter, says Polanski, who grew up in Minnesota, I thought she had to have been joking because nobody in my life would have thought of me as somebody who wanted to get attention. And to that I say, Mr. Polanski, everybody loves a little fame. A lyric she wrote about him addressing the congruity. How does a man love a woman like me? Wait, how does a man like me love a woman like you? Or as he puts it, how could somebody who is so shy and wants so much privacy love someone that would cause his life to become an exact opposite of everything he thought he wanted? And to that I say, Mr. Polanski, everybody loves a little fame. My mom thought he would be a great match, Gaga says, or that at least I would be enamored with him. Her mother made a point of adding, Stephanie, he's a very serious guy. Telling this story now, Gaga can't quite get the words out. She chokes up and begins to weep. Why are you crying? Sorry, she says. It's so special to look back at that on that because so many people in my life at that time were looking for a good time. People really loved drunk Lady Gaga. She knew that Polanski, none of she knew with Polanski, none of my tricks were gonna work on him. We were gonna meet each other and probably have a very sincere adult conversation and see if we liked each other. The way she words that, it gives like a matchmaking weird, like a deeper weird matchmaking situation. Like, let's see if we're gonna match. I don't know if we are, but I guess maybe that's what you do when you get older. You just like, let's cut the shit and see what's gonna happen with this. Michael's sense of gravity might be the thing that I was attracted to him about in the him the most. He immediately understood how serious things were for me. In the past, she acknowledged daddy issues led her to some bad choices in men. My dad's kind of a tough guy, she said. My dad has more of how I know live fast, die young mentality. He's reformed now. He's changed a lot. Blah 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 blah. Um, she says, her father has worried about her. She finally acknowledges the situation with her father and the whole like Trump thing. Um, I try to focus on my relationship with my dad outside of what we don't agree about. She says, as everybody knows, that is hard. We are a family, just like all families. And so I'm just like, I think at a very young age, she peeped that, and that's why she's so like rebellious. Um, I think that her dad has to do with her rebellion, definitely. She met Polanski when she was finishing Chromatica. She was actually in a rough shape, he says. I was smoking three pack. She says. I was smoking three packs of cigarettes a day, sitting on the porch. She says she's about to do Chromatica interviews, explaining what a great place she was in. But in reality, I was as great as I could be for someone who smoked weed all day. Knocked back couple of bottles of wine and passed out. The more dramatic crises of 2017 or so had passed, but even by the time she shot House of Gucci in early 2021, she was feeling unstable. She references her references at the time to, oh, I thought she talked about, okay, she does talk about it. A psychiatric nurse on set had less to do with the rigors of the role than her ongoing issues. I don't think I was doing very well at the time during that film at all, which was shocking. So it's interesting that she was able to um, separate. Oh, this character is really going through a lot, but I'm also actually going through a lot, and I'm not necessarily healed than I thought I was. Um, he says she looked like she was not in charge of her. Polanski says the piece that I always noticed was how disempowered she felt, he says, not in charge of her own life. I'll never meet somebody so incredibly talented and gifted, feel so disempowered. He watched her sit down at the piano to write and started crying. What he saw was somebody that feels very far away from what they're supposed to be doing. She says, he wanted to take care of me, and I've never been loved that way. My life was so serious to him. It was not a party. He helped me see that my life was precious. Polanski told her she needed to reclaim her music, and in turn, she asked for his help because it was music. Because it was music, it was sort of ended up with me helping her make music, he says. The way I would be if she had wanted me to open up an Italian restaurant. I would have been the one to make pasta. It was never about music. It was sort of ended up there. And I'm like, that's where it's just It's confusing. But I guess, you do what you got to do when you love somebody. Because, okay, let's read on because she said some stuff that I was like, what? She says she'd asked for Polanski's opinion, and he found himself making lyrical and musical suggestions. There's a whole bunch of lyrics in the album that I wrote, not intentionally. We were texting each other, and I was like, oh, what about this? Polanski says. And then it ends up in the song. He was surprised to learn that she had given him songwriting credits, as some fans were. It was very touching to me that she wanted to acknowledge me, he says. And I think, like, as a musician, that's a huge statement. Even though I don't think Gaga has really gone through that so much in her career, like, let's say others have definitely gone through. So to give him writing credits, give him pieces of the song that he can financially. It's not even about credit, but it is also like a financial situation. Is interesting. It's interesting. I don't think it ended up maybe being a little more confusing to people from the outside looking in than we would have expected it to be, and I definitely am very confused looking in. The Mayhem sessions were long and often emotionally intense. There were so many times where we could sing a vocal for a song and it would bring me to tears, and then she would also be in tears. Michael is so amazing because he's so level headed, she says. He would be also, we would all be so eccentric and excited and jumping up and down and diving into the art. And then he would come in like a David Down. No, I'm saying, he didn't say that right. I said that part. Then he would come in and be like a great leveler. He'd be like, nah, I don't like that song as much as I like the other song. Which I'm like, interesting. Like, this man has no musical background. And you have. I said I wasn't going to go in there. He has no musical background, but you trust him enough. And I feel like she's being kind of dependent. I feel like Gaga. Ugh, I feel like Gaga's being dependent on a man in her career. Or this is maybe what she wanted. And I feel like Gaga, um she is a younger woman, but she also is a millennial, like an older millennial. And I feel like some of those older millennials still do have these conservative or traditional type aspects to them. Because I'm like, I feel like she's very dependent. It comes off like she's very dependent on him. I don't know. She's on the board for some skin health thingamajig. They're planning on getting married soon, either during the tour or after. Well, hell, it has to be during because the tour doesn't end until March. I don't think there's like a whole like month off. I don't know. This is interesting. Um, they talk about parenthood, and that was pretty much it. I think yeah, that was it. Um, I'm shocked that she actually talks so much, even though Gaga does talk a lot. When she's ready, I think she talks a lot. Uh, I don't think she has to do another interview about where she's at. I feel like this really sums up the past, the present, actually, and the future. That's what they should have called this. What is this called? It's called like the rediscovering of Lady Gaga or something like that. And I feel like it should have been called the past, the present, and the future because that's definitely what she talks about. And I feel like this whole era, she's going to be talking about, the past and how she's gotten to the past, gotten over the past, um, and how it really reflects the present where she's at now. And you know what? We're glad that, she's not going through so much mental anguish anymore and that she's healing, which is really important. And I guess we're just not getting a happier, I guess this is the happiest we're going to see visually of Lady Gaga. Thanks so much for listening to the Dare Show podcast. I appreciate you for listening. Leave a comment below